does, doesn't it?
Oh my god.
Oh, goodness. Oh, man. So, I know last time we talked about fading in at a certain time. Is this the time we fade into? Not going to do that this time?
I mean,
You want to just start?
yeah.
How do we start then?
Let's just start.
Okay.
Hello and welcome back to Sama X Kouhai. I am Schultzy Sama.
And I am Kouhai-Sensei.
Fantastic. Alright, so today we're going to be doing the fall 2018 recap / review
/ breakdown.
/ what we thought of this season.
Overall, talk about some shows that interested us and some that didn't.
Yeah.
As well as some things we haven't gotten around to yet, but were part of this season.
Yeah.
So,
see, the first one we have up is Kouhai-Sensei Alternative. I really enjoyed the first Kouhai-Sensei, but I heard that this one is nowhere near as good. However, they do still have the score, which is done by the Pillows, which is one of the reasons I very much enjoyed Kouhai-Sensei in the first one. And I did hear some of their new songs, and it was pretty good. So I'm probably going to check this out, but it's nothing super important.
okay. I did not watch any of the Kouhai-Sensei. Scratch that. I tried. I couldn't get into it.
I feel like this show had to be... you had to watch it, like, when it was popular.
Yeah, and this was... Crikey, man. This was 2003, 2004 on Adult Swim or Toonami.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't get into it, dude. So, great.
And, was it the next one? It was Double Decker?
Doug and Kirill.
Yeah. Kirill?
Kirill?
I don't know. This one, so we actually didn't finish this. We got up to, like, episode 8, I think.
I think we finished 9.
Yeah, we finished 9.
Because we have 3 left.
And, it's pretty solid. I personally lost interest, and I believe you also lost interest as well.
I did. There are some... The show does have a lot of good high points, but it also has some lows as well.
Yeah. I think the story was pretty interesting. Well, I guess the universe was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and what it was centered on, you have an elite team of detectives that deal with a certain outbreak of a drug, which is fine.
I think I was personally hoping it was more like Psychopaths, and honestly, it wasn't anything like Psychopaths. The art was good though. The character design was really good.
The art stood out. It was actually above. The background art was good. The CG was well done, not overdone.
Yeah, it was very good.
The fight sequences were pretty well choreographed, very well animated, exciting.
Yeah, the characters, most of the characters were pretty... Oh, I wouldn't say most of them, but some of the characters were pretty interesting.
Right. I liked the adaptation of, like, a modern take on 18th century, like, goth wear and steampunk wear.
Yeah.
You know? And I also like the weapon and vehicle design. You know, almost everything looked like it was a DeLorean, right?
Yeah, all the police cars were actually DeLoreans, which is kind of weird. And the inspectors, their police car transformed.
Yeah.
Into like a supercar.
Yeah, like Super Pursuit mode with some Knight Rider BS going on.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
But
actually.
I mean, it wasn't practical. But here we are talking about practicality in an anime.
Yeah,
you know?
Sure.
But who has moving exhaust? I mean, seriously, what does that even do?
Yeah, that was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Pretty good.
What was it? And how many relatable characters?
One relatable character they got out of what I think 10 total main characters.
Yeah.
That didn't get really that much screen time.
What about Bamboo Man?
2 relatable characters. Yes.
Yes.
2 relatable characters.
But seriously, Bamboo Man was he was a very good villain, I think.
Yeah.
The fight scenes with him were probably the most interesting parts of the show.
Very interesting. And even though there were other action sequences that didn't involve the fights with Bamboo Man, they were also pretty well done and pretty exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was overall not a bad package. The character design as far as looks was well done. The background art was well done. In a lot of instances, you can see what exactly is foreground because it has outlines and tracing, and the background is just like pastel colors with no borders in between any of the different surfaces, and the background had as much detail to it for each background as the foreground did. All in all, a beautiful show.
Yeah. Honestly, if you're into sci-fi action and what is it, mysteries kind of? I guess it's kind of like mystery.
Yeah, I'd say crime thriller.
Yeah, I'd say like crime thriller. If you're into that type of anime, definitely you'll most likely enjoy it.
Yeah. Those are pretty much all the upsides. The downsides are I don't think any of the characters for me were relatable or even that likable. The MC's partner was the most relatable character for me, and he's a self-admitted a-hole.
Yeah.
But he was the only one that I could think of wasn't a trope or a stereotype of some kind. The MC was a very feminine-looking and acting person who became a cop to look for his sister, who appears later in the series, and come to find out that it's actually his brother. And who cross-dresses
for some reason.
Yeah. And then they decide to keep that a secret from another character for no reason. And there's a robot character who he discovers is a robot, and he's also trying to keep that a secret from this same character. So he winds up doing robot dances throughout the season. So they kind of play it up, and it's interesting, but I think it was a good vehicle for saying, hey, all these people that are not normal are actually good people. Yeah. Stop being a bigot instead of actually just trying to tell a good story.
And they have like a lot of empowered women too. And
I don't have a problem with women in the workplace or women being in power.
I mean, I'm not saying it. It's more like it's all of these
SJW tropes in one place.
Yeah, basically. And honestly, it felt like they were kind of throwing it in your face. I did try to ignore it a lot of times, but at a certain point, it just became
way too much.
Way obvious what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, overall, it was decent.
Yeah, I'd give it a solid 3.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I'd say 3
out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we have Girl in Twilight, Akana Setsu Shouju. Really interesting premise on this. These girls have found an old radio, and they do a ritual at a certain time of day and tune this radio to a certain frequency, and they don't know what's going to happen at first. So they all get transported to this alternate universe where these monsters attack them, and one of the girls has a double who pretty much comes in and saves them in a very kick-ass manner.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
The fight scene was great.
You were telling me you got frisson during that fight scene.
Excuse me?
Frisson. Goosebumps, chills.
Excuse me?
Whatever.
No, yeah, it was everything. They did a very good job at building up to that point. And is honestly, to me, when it got to that point, I was not expecting that at all.
Yeah.
And the art actually, or the way that the other universe had drastically changed from the original universe was very interesting to me.
Yeah, it was definitely a different landscape. They travel to, it looks like each of the girls is going to have their own arc. For example, the second girl has an arc where she takes the radio and goes off on her own journey. And the other girls come in later and they have to find her. But in this one, it's a universe that's very similar looking to their own, except that there's like mandatory marriage at 17, and she's going to wind up having to be married here pretty soon. And come to find out, she was against it at first because it was like infringing on her will and her desire. But once she found out who she was going to marry and met him, this hot and famous guy who I think also relates to somebody that's back in her universe that she looks up to, she wanted to go along with it, and her friends were literally going to have to like talk her out of staying in this universe.
Yeah.
So it's actually very, very wild. And the other friend, the other girl from the first universe, she appears in the second arc, and so on. So I think this is going to be like a contiguous story where they go through and they encounter all these other universes and solve problems, or at least try to escape unscathed. I'd say 3.5, 4, somewhere around there.
I mean, I haven't seen enough to give it a rating, but I am definitely interested enough to continue watching it.
Yeah, I've watched more than I think Schultz-Sama has, and it's definitely worth continuing.
Is that right?
My opinion.
Let's see. Slime is the next one.
Yes, it is. The time I was reincarnated as a slime.
Yeah, the time I was reincarnated as a slime.
It was just that time, though.
I enjoy this one a lot. I'm not up to date with it, but I think I got like 9 episodes, 8 episodes or something. But
I got 4 in.
I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's very good. The story is really good. There's enough to differentiate it with other similar shows that makes me want to watch it.
Yeah, I think for me, I was less interested in it. I only got 4 in before I kind of gave up. And I guess the reason that I gave up was because I couldn't put 2 different versions of goblins in my mind at the same time.
I think that's ridiculous.
So
one of the big drawing points for this show to me is that they're taking these monsters, or I guess
fantasy characters, monsters, yeah,
like villains in most other depictions of them, and they're turning them, like, they're showing them as like weak characters.
Yeah.
And the main character, the slime, he ends up turning them into extremely strong characters, and they're not actually. They turn out to be
just normal people. They're not
villains.
villains.
They turn out to be the not the villains, but they're the victims, really, is in most sense.
Yeah, they make them very relatable. It's easy to relate with a victim.
Yeah, and it turns out that the humans are actually the ones that just want to get rid of them just because they're different,
Yeah, I mean, then I can't see a problem with that.
But it's a good show. It's a good story. Good premise.
I'm gonna wait a little bit until the memories of the other show that I mentioned kind of fade, and I'm gonna watch it and continue on with it because it looks like it's continuing into the winter season as well.
Yeah, it looks like it's gonna.
So I want to give it its own fair shot.
Yeah, it's quite possible that this is popular enough that it'll just be ongoing, but I'm not entirely sure about that.
Yeah. The next up was another Fifth of the North Star show. For me, it's one of the first animes that I watched when I was a kid. With Nankto Seiken and the constellation of the stars, pointing out all the weak points and hit points that Ken uses to destroy his opponents. Basically, the premise of the show is he's a traveling warrior who fights for justice, and sometimes he comes across people who fight using another similar ripoff style, and he definitely really destroys them just based on principle. But there's more. If you're a fan of this stuff already, just poorly drawn action and gore for the sake of it, there's more of it available. You should check it out.
Yeah, I have no interest.
Well, okay.
Yeah, not at all. Next one, Rascal does not dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. This show was very good. I gave it a 4.8.
Yeah.
It was a very good show.
I'm gonna actually kind of step on your toes there and give it a 4.9.
Yeah, well, you're a jerk, so
well,
that actually that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with you.
No, not at all. Well, so this show, it was definitely not what I was expecting it to be.
No.
When I started watching it, did you wanna go into it?
Yeah, a little bit. There's it's gonna be one of these seasons that has multiple arcs.
Yeah.
So you have an MC who has the ability to not be affected by all these puberty syndrome issues that are happening to the people around him.
Well, this abnormal experience called puberty syndrome.
Yeah, so essentially, the first arc would be one of his senpais, who is a celebrity, turning herself in...
Former celebrity.
Yeah, semi-retired, I should say.
Pretty important.
Wanting to be invisible, as it's explained, and on Wednesdays, she would be able to turn invisible. So, because she was invisible to everybody, she could get a little bit more daring and start walking around in, daring costumes.
A bunny girl suit.
Yeah.
A bunny girl outfit. And that's like the first time that the main character met her.
Yeah, in person. And she was surprised that he could see her.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the rest of that arc goes is that because that was her desire to not be seen and not be bothered by the general public, she becomes less and less visible more and more often.
Yeah, and
people literally start forgetting about her.
The cool thing about it was in the beginning, the main character kept talking about how if you want to survive, you don't change the atmosphere. You can't change the atmosphere. You just got to go with it.
Blend in.
And blend in.
Yeah.
And with Bunny Girl Senpai, she was doing that, but it was literally manifesting in an abnormal way where she wanted people to ignore her and not really stand out, but it was causing her to become invisible and completely disappear from everyone.
Yeah.
And
it was definitely odd because she couldn't even walk into a kiosk and buy food.
Yeah, and it got to a point, and the way that this changed the main character is he started to realize that in order to save her, he had to go against what he originally believed in, which was going along with the atmosphere and not changing it. He had to end up changing the atmosphere in order to save her.
Yeah, she was going to disappear from everyone's notice, including I think his own after a while.
Yeah. There was a point where the night before he had to write down. Well, it seemed like every day he was writing down what was happening, and at one point he forgot, and then he read
what he wrote.
He read what he wrote.
Yeah.
And he ended up remembering, and stuff happened without spoiling anything.
Yeah. The second arc is another one of his classmates, this time a Kouhai, who crushes on him. Mm-hmm. And he winds up having to live the same day over and over again until he gets it right.
Well,
that's what he thinks, but really he does do everything perfectly. It does do everything right, and it still repeats. So he's got to find a way to deal with whoever the cause of this.
Yep, which ends up being the Kouhai.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It was interesting how they completed this arc, because the reason that she kept doing it over and over was actually because of him.
Mm-hmm.
And because that she was interested in him.
Right.
And the day was never going the way that she wanted. So he had to somehow convince her to keep moving on, even though, he was going to reject her.
Correct. And one of the interesting things about this show is the way that the story progresses. Unlike another similar series like Amagami SS, this is a contiguous story. So in the midst of living through this Groundhog Day issue with his Kouhai, he's still continuing on with his relationship with the senpai.
Yeah.
And he still he's got another couple of people. He's got a sister who has lost her memory that he's dealing with. He's also got another classmate who is smart, who he goes to for advice for these kind of things, as well as other things. So this story continues to progress. The third arc is another character has like a split personality / split body issue.
Yeah.
And she has to learn to deal with that. And the fourth arc is a switching body
swap,
issue.
Yeah, it was the main heroine and her sister.
Yeah.
That ended up switching bodies because her sister wanted to be like her.
Right. Which even if you look back though, I think it was like 9 or 10. It was like 10 episodes in. They finally introduced the sister, but almost every other character continues to play roles.
Right.
In each of the arcs. Mm-hmm. It's not like they forget about a character. throughout the second arc, the third arc, and even the fourth arc, they continue to progress each of the characters' stories.
Yep. And then the last one was about the main character's own sister,
Mm-hmm.
who had the issue of being cyberbullied, and wounds were physically appearing on her body whenever she was cyberbullied.
Yeah.
And it caused her to basically lose her memories.
Yep.
And pretty much block out everything. And then eventually.
So throughout the entire series, she's just been this happy-go-lucky girl who stays in an apartment in her PJs.
Yeah.
And goes by third person.
Yeah. And there's nothing there that leads you to believe that she actually lost her memories at the point when they moved out, or they moved into this place by themselves.
Right. Well, that's another thing I want to mention that's well done about this series is once they'll actually show you the instance of whatever the puberty syndrome is, and then they'll explain it to you after they show it to you. But they give you an opportunity to kind of figure it out, and so you have like little clues, for example, of why did I just talk with her on the phone, but now I see her in the library?
Yeah.
Things of that nature. And I think it's introducing each new instance of the syndrome that in that manner was, I think, good writing, and good forethought, because it kept me engaged.
Yeah, and they also would try to explain it scientifically as well, which I thought was pretty interesting because they didn't use real scientific theories to explain some of these things.
Yeah, no. All in all, good series.
Very good.
Definitely check it out. And if they decide to move further with the series or with a similar series, I'm 100% all up for watching more of it.
Let's see, the next one is Miss Vampire That Lives in My Neighborhood? Something like that. So this one's pretty cute. It's basically just about this vampire that lives in the neighborhood and these other girls that find her. And it's a lot, very slice of life, except with a vampire, I guess. Well, a lolly vampire, I should say. It is pretty funny at some points. I'll probably continue to watch it, but it's not really anything that I am eager to finish.
It's not really something that piqued my interest, so I'm probably not going to watch it. Unless Shelter-sama comes to me and says, hey, so that show that we thought was just lackluster suddenly took a turn, and it's so interesting now. So
we'll see about that.
We'll see if that happens. Next up is Yagata Kimi no Naru. It looks like it's going to be a female-on-female love story.
So is this citrus?
It's not citrus. It's not citrus.
Okay, it's not citrus.
But it looks like citrus.
Yeah, it looks like citrus.
It does look like citrus. I mean,
but it's not orange.
The character design, like both of the series have frumpy sweaters. You have a taller brunette and a shorter blonde. Although in this series, the shorter blonde is kind of less of a gal. She's not like wearing a whole lot of makeup, and she isn't very like wild looking.
So is this orange?
It's clearly not orange.
It's not orange?
Not orange.
Because you kept confusing it with citrus and orange, which makes me believe you don't really want to watch this.
Whoa. I actually do kind of want to watch this because it has the potential to be really well done. So I don't know if it's going to have something to do with either just dealing with her feelings for another girl or dealing with whether or not she wants to have feelings with another girl the same way that Citrus did. But it looks like a good romance story, and I'm going to be checking it out. I just did not get an opportunity to go further into it this season so far. But I watch a lot of backlog stuff while I'm waiting for some season stuff to come out so I can marathon it.
And possibly rewatch.
And possible rewatches, yeah.
Next one is Certain Magical Index Season 3. Yeah, this one's ongoing. It's very good. The show is very good. I very much enjoyed all the other seasons and A Certain Magical Index, or A Certain Scientific Railgun.
The railgun, was it scientific?
I mean, the way in the sense that how a railgun works, yes, it is scientific.
Okay.
But yeah, No, I'm definitely gonna watch this. It's very good. All the characters are really good. It seems to be getting pretty good reviews so far, and is quite popular. So I'm definitely going to finish this up this season.
Okay. Fantastic. All right, next up we want to talk about the new JoJo season. I'm actually going back up through all the JoJos, and I've just put this in here as a placeholder because I'm going to be watching it once I get to this point. So far, the JoJo verse is
Pretty amazing.
certainly weird, wild, and amazing.
Pretty amazing.
So
I've heard that this is one of the best JoJo seasons.
okay, I've been kind of trying to stay away from it, like people talking about it, because I want to catch up to this point at first before I start reading anything about it. But from what I've watched of JoJo so far, it's definitely in the to watch list, and it looks like with the ranking that we have at 4.7, people are really liking it as well.
Oh yeah.
So
Next is Boarding School Juliet. So this is another series that we completed. I gave it a solid 4.5.
I just blew you out of the water with a 4.6.
Oh god. So this I'd say what really drew me into this was the first episode. The first episode really grabbed my attention, and it was mainly because the fight scene, that first fight scene.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much how it opened.
It was very climactic, and it was very, very well done.
Definitely. You could clearly see the division line between the two factions involved. Obviously, just like the classic Romeo and Juliet tale, the Romeo character is the head of one faction. The Juliet character is actually the head of another faction.
Yeah, for their class.
For this boarding school. Yeah, for their class. They're not quite... I think they're first years for this high school.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, they're like class leaders, I guess.
But it's a boarding school, so they've actually been going... This boarding school does more than just high school. I think it does primary schools, etc., because they refer to, like, say, for example, something that happened last year or years previous for these two characters having interacted with each other.
Yeah.
So it's almost as if this boarding school takes care of the entirety of a child's education before they go to college. Mm-hmm. So I really liked it. It actually had a wide variety of characters, as well as, showed a good amount of character growth and development.
Yeah.
There were parts in there that made me mad, which meant that, if they were trying to cast someone as a villain, they did a good job.
Yeah.
But there were also likable secondary characters as well. The female lead for the Black Dogs, or Black Doggies.
The Black Doggies.
Who is Romeo's factions, what their name is. She was definitely, I would say, waifu material.
Yeah, she was a pretty good character.
Yeah.
I enjoyed her a lot.
Yeah.
It was kind of a little bittersweet because she kind of had a thing for the main character.
Yes.
The main male character.
For the Romeo character. But I guess either she didn't make her move, or he was blind, or unappreciative, whatever the case was.
Well, he's always had a thing for Julia.
Yeah.
Julia.
For Persia.
Persia?
Sure. And there's also a third faction for power in this series too. It's not necessarily just the staff. It's their upperclassmen and same classmen that are the prefects, who are pretty much the beginning and end of the say of what happens with each of these factions.
It's like they're the student council for each faction.
Yeah.
What it seems like.
So, like for example, if you're looking at the cover there, you have the Romeo character isn't even mentioned. He's not on the cover at all.
Yeah.
I don't know why. But you have the Julia character, her friend Princess Charlotte, who comes in, second or third episode of the series. Mm-hmm. The character on the right there is the main character for the Black Dogs faction, mm-hmm. and then you have the sisters up top who are younger, who are incredibly smart. And one of the cool things about their characters is they start off as being, while they have their personalities, they start off as just being part of the prefectural body.
Yeah,
but
the youngest prefects.
Yeah, and the Romeo character actually sees that the don't really have a time, or they don't really have an opportunity to interact with the other students based on their prefectural status, and takes some time and, does a really good job and sacrifices something out of himself to make friends with them.
I mean, well, I know there's one episode where he leaves Persia in
A barrel.
a barrel.
A barrel.
And goes and hangs out with these little kids for a long time.
I would say that's a sacrifice.
Yeah. And she was pretty upset because she stayed in the barrel the whole time.
Yeah. Let's sneak out and go on a date.
But,
hey, wait in this barrel for me. I'll be right back.
But she also ended up seeing the reason why he was doing it.
Yeah, it was the softer side. And there are a couple of instances where you see Juliet looking at Romeo, where Romeo can't quite spend the time that he wants to with the Juliet character because their factions are at war. I don't think we mentioned that. Mm-hmm. And with these two people being the heads of their factions, if they were to start being seen together or not being nice to each other, it would mean both of their expulsions from their factions.
Right.
Which, because of the way the politics in the school is set up, this school is set up in the middle of two kingdoms or polities who are trying to maintain some kind of peace.
Yeah, it's like the East and the West.
Right.
Yeah, it's actually very weird because they're actually on an island that is literally in the middle between the Western culture and the Eastern culture.
Right.
And this boarding school is on this island where it's supposed to be
neutral ground,
and everyone's supposed to get along.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they did this to create this mutual environment with these students so that they could end up, I guess, probably
having peaceful relations later on in life.
Yeah.
Which doesn't quite work out, but leads to some very funny circumstances when the Romeo character and the Juliet character are together, and then someone comes around and they have to start fighting.
Yeah.
in order to cover it.
And also, it leads to a very, very well done conclusion.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And that was another. The fight scene in that was also incredibly well done.
The tension was really high too.
It was very high because they're basing this off of Romeo and Juliet, and they're quite seriously fighting each other with real swords.
Yeah.
The main
two MCs.
Yeah, the two main characters, and
everyone's watching them.
Yeah, and everyone's watching them, and no one's stopping them. And it gets to a point where they basically go to deliver a final blow to each other, directly at their heart or the middle of their chest.
And I'm wondering, are they going to follow the same story? Is this going to be a tragedy?
Yeah,
like the original Romeo and Juliet.
Yep. And then the way they concluded it was actually very satisfying and very well done.
Well, I think we almost spoiled it there. Spoilers.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's how it's gonna go.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I would
4.6 recommend.
Yeah, definitely recommend this. It's very good.
Yeah. So the next anime we watched and completed, it's So Many Colors in the Future. What a Wonderful World.
Quite the mouthful.
Isn't that title almost a chapter in itself?
Yeah. I would say it is the first chapter.
Yeah. So, honestly, this is a really well done... There is some romance aspects to it, but it's a drama.
Solid 4.5.
Yeah, solid 4.6.
Okay. Yeah, it is mostly a drama.
Yeah. It's
first and foremost
interestingly done. The use of color is important in this one too.
It's very important. And
the backgrounds and the art is well done. The character design's good without being, too tropey. You have some generic guys in there, and you also have some generic kind of girls, in the story as well. Mm-hmm. But what mainly concerns me as far as the art is the attention to detail that they do in the background as well. There aren't that many action sequences, but from what I can see, it's animated well.
It is very well. It revolves around an art club, basically.
Yeah, art and photography club.
Yeah, so you have one character that draws art, and then the rest of them are basically
in a photography club.
Yeah, taking pictures, and
then
it is very, very good.
Yeah. So we have a little bit of a premise. There's a girl who is kind of sad, just kind of drifting through life, and she sees in black and white. She's supposedly able to do magic, which there is a small amount of magic in this world, and only a few people can do it. So it's kind of rare. You might find 1 or 2 people in a school that can do magic. So I don't know, 1 in 500, 1 in 1,000, based on the kind of school.
Yeah, something like that.
That you might get to.
Yeah.
So the premise is, the opening sequence is she's going to a fireworks celebration. She's going to meet someone there. Her grandma shows up and says, "Oh, I'm glad you can meet me here. Hey, by the way, I'm going to send you 60 years in the past."
Yeah.
And that's the opening sequence.
Yeah, that was a little abrupt. I think that kind of made me wary about the rest of the series. Just how abrupt that was.
Yeah, but
it was kind of like foreshadowing too, because the grandma did say, "You'll understand when you get there."
Right. It's not like there was more to the conversation than what I just said.
Right.
There was clearly a relationship between them two, and there was no inkling at all that the grandmother was doing this to her grandchild with any kind of malice at all.
Right.
Right.
It's because she said she had to.
Yeah.
And you find out that
she literally had to.
Yeah.
So she casts a spell to send her into the past. She rides a bus and pays her toll with Pocky, which I'm all for Pocky being the universal currency. So definitely would pay tolls with Pocky. She lands in one of the male characters' rooms, and she winds up having to hide like under his bed because he's like walking in, right?
Yeah.
So he leaves the room. She's like wondering, "Oh my God, what do I do?"
Yeah,
and she winds up sneaking out his window, and a couple of his friends are walking down a path, and they see this girl sneaking out of his window, and they're like, "Oh my God, what has our friend done?"
Yeah.
They're like recorded on a cell phone.
Yeah. And they end up meeting her, and they start being good friends.
Yeah.
So one of the things I found interesting was specifically with that female character is the way they designed her. So her personality was very kind of like, "Oh, why would you like a person like me?" kind of mentality.
Yeah,
and
she had also a very low opinion of herself.
Yeah, and she couldn't see color, so everything seemed very drab and depressing. And also her hair was like whitish gray, or gray, like a grayish color, which also sort of symbolized.
There was lots of symbolization
where she couldn't see colors.
Yeah, so she meets up with a couple of other people in the art club who, coincidentally, are the friends of the person whose room she woke up with, or got transported to, and they started asking her, "Hey, are you dating our friend?" Yada yada yada. But they're nice people.
Yeah.
So she goes back to her family's home, that she knew from 6 years in the future, and it's still there, which is great.
Yeah.
She meets up with her mother.
Is her grandmother's mother and grandmother.
Yes, so her great-grandmother and her great-great-grandmother.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Says, "Hey, I'm part of the family." And they believe her, which is cool because they're all, magicians.
Well, because of
some proof that she gave too.
Yeah. The letter, I guess, that the grandma gave her to give to them.
That's true. So come to find out, though, when they were sitting down and discussing everything, she dropped her earpiece, which also
it was like a family heirloom.
Contains the stone, which is a family heirloom that's passed down to the women in this family.
Yeah, and helps with their magic or something.
Yeah, so she casts a spell to go out and find it, and she actually finds the dude whose room she landed in.
Yeah,
and he's got it. But she walks up behind him and he's drawing on his tablet in the park. And amazingly, everything else is in black and white, but the picture that he has on his tab was in color.
Yeah, which I thought the way that they did that, for some reason, it just stood out. Like, when they went to her view and then they showed the colors on there, I mean, obviously it would stand out, but it was pretty amazing the way that they did it. And then, the picture actually would come out of the tablet, and it ended up going around her and causing everything else to kind of go into color.
Yeah, yeah. So it was more. It was less of a. It was less of just looking at a picture on a tablet that was in color, and more of a symbolization of how much this color could affect her and change her world.
Right.
You know, because a golden fish, you know, for example, did come out of the picture and swam all around her and actually lit the things around her in color as well. And she was so fascinated by it. So without giving too many other spoilers, this is like the first episode or two versus, you know, of setup.
Yeah.
She winds up going to a school waiting for her grandmother to come back from a boarding school, a magic school in England, which looks suspiciously like Hogwarts.
It's Hogwarts.
But it doesn't mention it's Hogwarts because apparently I don't know if they want to be sued.
It's
Whatever the case is, she winds up going to the same school her grandmother goes to, which is the school she went to, but the uniforms are different. And she meets up with a couple of girls that she met the first day that helped her out, and they turn out to be part of the photography club, and they all become really good friends. They try to help draw her out of her shell, which apparently no one has been able to really do in her first 17 years, but apparently the people in this era of Japan are much nicer and are able to do that.
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with is because she was able to only see the drawings of that one character
in color. Yeah.
She sort of became infatuated with him and wanted to get closer to him.
I think because he was part of the club.
Oh, because he was part of the club, she would join it.
Right.
And also because she wanted to see. Well, she did go up to him and say that she wanted to see more of his drawings.
Yeah, in the park where they met before he gave her earpiece back. So yeah, I mean, all in all, really good story. Little bittersweet ending.
It was very bittersweet, but it's very believable. I appreciated that ending. Actually, it was honestly the only realistic ending you could come up with.
Yeah. And I don't know if I mentioned this to our friends on the internet or not before, but one of the reasons why I like watching anime is that it's not formulaic.
Right.
You know, not everybody has to have the best possible outcome for it to be a good story.
Right.
So, I liked it as well, like a lot.
All right, moving on to Sword Art Online, Alicization. I have not seen a whole lot of this. I do enjoy. Well, I enjoyed the first season of Sword Art Online. The other ones I did not feel were as good, but I've heard great things about Alicization, and I actually enjoyed the couple episodes that I did see. And I will probably finish this season, most likely.
Yeah. I haven't watched any of it, but it's not that I don't plan on watching it. It's just that the show, all the Sword Arts and all of the GGOs have been so good that when they left it on cliffhangers, I would literally scream in my seat and like stomp around the house for a little bit and get upset about it.
It's quite true.
Yeah. So what I'm going to wind up doing is waiting for it to finish and then marathon it. Like, so rip my, Saturday and rip my Sunday.
And it is especially weird for me because I'll be sitting there and be like, it's not even that good. Why are you acting like this?
If that's really what you're thinking, then you have no taste in anime.
Anyways.
Wow. All right. So, Sword Art Online, definitely gonna watch it once it finishes up, because getting it all in one large chunk is how I'm gonna consume that one.
Goblin Slayer. This was very enjoyable, I should say.
Oh yes, I enjoyed it greatly.
I gave it. I think it's a solid 4.8.
I'm gonna have to tie you with that one.
Yeah, 4.8, which is surprising and quite scary.
Right.
At the same time.
Yeah, I know. One of the best anime this season.
If not the best.
Yeah, plenty of different characters with different character designs.
Now I know you're saying there were two things that you wished that it had.
Yeah, I think there's two things. Was there a third? For me personally, I think there's two things that this series was lacking in order to make it one of the best series ever. First is more NSFW goblin action.
Not safe for work.
Yeah. And the second would be actual character names. I don't know if anyone else picked up on that. I actually had to have it pointed out to me. There are no character names.
Yeah.
You have Priestess. You have
Guild Girl.
You have Goblin Slayer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
For us,
was it Cowgirl?
those are just titles.
No, Cow Farmer? What they call her? Cowgirl.
Cowgirl.
Farmer Girl.
Farmer Girl.
I don't know.
Uncle.
Yeah.
You know, nobody had a proper name. It's like you were identified as just what you did, which, I mean, I guess is fine. But at the point of it all, wouldn't they all be Goblin Slayers at the end of this?
I mean, it depended on where they ended up going.
Yeah, I guess. So, it opens up where you have like a happy-go-lucky beginners, beginners adventurers group. They're going to go out and just, see if they can get some XP or get some gold by killing some low-level goblins. And so you have a
so the
priestess, a monk, a warrior.
Yeah, without going too much into it, the first episode was it definitely drew you in. It was very it was shocking. It had a lot of surprises in it.
Quite possibly one of the best premieres of anime.
You should probably not let your child watch it.
Do not let your child watch it.
Yes, do not let your child.
Do not let your 8-year-old watch it. Do not let your 10-year-old watch it. Maybe 12 if you watch it first. Look, man, at 12 I was watching Beavis and Butthead.
Just don't.
Yeah.
Don't allow them to watch it. If they end up watching it because without your, just don't let them watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is one of the more adult themed anime, and this is without.
But it really hooked you in. Like,
yeah.
That first episode really hooked you in. I think that episode is probably what made everyone enjoy it so much. I think, or actually stuck with watching it.
Oh, certainly. And if that episode had, it still could have been good if it had gone different ways.
Right.
But if the reason why this series in particular stuck in my head for the entirety of the length of the series so far was because of how that first episode went.
Yeah, and I know for me, throughout the entire season, I kept thinking, is this person going to die? When are they going to die? Someone's going to die. Someone has to die, just because of what happened in that first episode. Yeah.
I was actually thinking somebody had to die too. And there was, true to name, in all but one episode, and I think it was episode 10, there was goblin slaying.
Yeah.
So, episode 10 is really only good for the first 2 minutes, and then you can skip
Hold
it.
up.
What?
You know what?
What?
I found the third reason, or the third thing that could have made this better.
Do tell.
Not having the 5 minutes of looking in the canary's eye. Literally 5 minutes. Just looking. That was an upsetting episode for me.
Really?
That was very upsetting.
Shelter-sama triggered hard by the canary's eye.
But it's fine. It's fine. It ended very strong.
Yeah.
It's very action-filled, action-packed, I should say.
With room for more.
Oh yeah.
With room for more.
Good. What's next?
We're looking at Fairy Tail.
Fairy Tail, the final series.
Yeah.
About time.
More happy, more Natsu,
More Natsu.
more Wendy,
More Wendy.
more Urza.
Yeah.
So
Wait, let's actually, this takes place a few years later too. So they're a little bit older and they're actually powered up.
like a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quite a bit.
So I'm not.
Let's say Natsu's quite a bit powered up. Quite a large
You
amount.
think he's got a fire in his belly and things are heating up?
I'd say he's basically a dragon in the human body.
Nice.
Kind of fire in his belly.
Nice. So I do have some catching up to do. I'm only at like episode 185 or so, which I think should be after the one of the original Dragon arcs, where they're fighting the dragons in midair. Where you first fight dragons.
That's actually pretty close.
Yeah.
You're actually pretty close to catching up with it. Actually.
Okay. So
I think one of the arcs is like a filler arc that basically is around the first guild leader.
You're not wrong. But anyway, this is also one of the first series, where the monologue by what's her name? Blonde girl?
What is her name? Blonde girl. Let's call her Blonde girl.
Blonde girl.
Blonde girl.
Actually made me...
Lucy,
yes.
Lucy.
The monologuing by Lucy actually made me look a lot closer at the friendships and the bonds that were being formed.
Are you sure it wasn't because of the plot?
Well, this show is certainly plot heavy and plot happy.
And Happy's in it.
He loves fish.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's got great characters. Like, there are some tropey characters, but no two characters are alike.
Yeah, and they're, for the most part, they're pretty unique.
Yeah.
Along with their powers as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is actually, it's the amount of powers that they have in it is, I wouldn't say it's similar to One Piece, but there's a lot of variety like there is in One Piece, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's powers are different, which is very cool. You know, you have very little overlap or copying.
Right.
And, you know, there are characters that have strengths in certain areas, and they're weak in others, and it's the formation of the teams that go out and try to solve these issues that lets them learn to depend and rely on each other.
Yeah. One of the big drawing points for me is the iconic music that they play when Natsu starts firing up.
Yeah.
When he starts getting serious or something happens where he gets all of a sudden a boost of power.
Oh yeah.
And they play that little jingle.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the music for this series is really good. We haven't talked about the music for a couple of the other series we talked about today.
Oh.
So we'll come back and hit the music in just a little bit. Next we're moving up to Conception, and if I had to rate this show on a scale of 1 to 5, I'd say -2.
Yeah, if I had to rate it on a scale of, it's a 0. Just
0?
Don't even bother.
Yeah,
I mean, bother.
I watched an episode and a half of this show, and it is so confusing. The writing is bad. The premise is bad. The character development is bad. The animation is bad. The backgrounds are not beautiful. And, you know, when they try to explain stuff to you, in the episode and a half that I watched, there were at least 3 occasions where one of the characters literally held up a sign and said, "For more information, check out the website."
Yeah. So, a bit of background is basically this is based off of a game, which actually looked kind of interesting.
The premise of the game wouldn't be bad, because you're in the middle of playing a game.
Yeah, but the way that they did, I don't know how they got the budget to do this, but it is just terrible.
Well, I mean, I guess if you're Gonzo, you can have some failures, right?
I don't know.
One failure is not going to put you under.
Really not a fan of Gonzo, but
right.
It was very bad.
Yeah.
Do not watch this.
Yeah,
Don't even bother with this.
The best part of the show.
There was a point that I actually hoped it was going to be basically a softcore porn.
And they couldn't even get that right.
No.
Just because that was the only thing that would have saved it, though.
Yes.
Not because you're a hentai.
No, that was the only thing that would have saved it. And they didn't. It was just horrible.
Yeah.
It was absolutely
Best part of the show is the cutscenes where they do the commercial breaks. That's it. Because they were actually artfully done.
Yeah.
Everything else was bad.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
Let's talk about another stinker. My Sister, My Writer. So I completed this. I watched all of it.
I watched probably the first half, I should say.
Yeah.
Generic tropes everywhere.
So it started out fine. It started out like a 3.5 Arrow Manga Sensei, basically. The art wasn't really as good. The story wasn't really as good
Or original now.
but about a few episodes in, there was a point where the sister, she was looking one way and talking, and then when she went to talk to the brother, she basically immediately switched directions.
Teleported.
Like, yeah, just teleported, facing the other way, talking to the brother. And I was like, well, that's really weird.
And it wasn't even at like a change of angle or change of scene. She just boop.
Yeah.
Instant transmission.
It was very weird.
Yeah.
And I started to realize that more and more of the animation just started getting worse and worse. Like, the eyes were drawn too far apart or too low on the face.
Or not there.
Yeah. And it just, even the writing got worse as it went on too. It was so poorly done. It almost seemed like something happened in the middle while making this, and they basically lost funding for it, or
their animator, like, something bad happens to his health. I hope if that happens, he's okay.
It just seemed like something happened to it.
They started relying on an intern,
which is why there's only 10 episodes of it.
Or the producer's younger brother, who's a first year. I don't get it.
It was terrible.
Yeah,
it was absolutely terrible. Not even worth it.
Yeah.
Don't even watch this.
Okay. Now that we've gotten through that, let's actually kind of finish things out on a lighter note.
How about a cuter note?
Oh, that applies as well. So the next and looks like final series we're going to be talking about is As Beelzebub Wishes It.
As Miss Beelzebub
likes.
Something like that. This show was incredibly adorable.
Yeah.
Very
the whole
adorable.
thing.
Absolutely everything about it was adorable. The colors they use, the art,
the eyes,
is absolutely adorable.
The fluffy creatures.
Like, they like fluffy. Oh my! I couldn't get past how adorable it was. I think the reason that I enjoyed this, whereas I don't like the magical girl adorable animes, but I enjoy this because I guess the environment they're in, because they're in hell, or
a pink Candyland hell.
It's considered hell.
It looks like Candyland.
It's run by Beelzebub, and they have other demon or other fallen angels such as like Astaroth and
Azazel. Yeah.
But they made it adorable.
Yeah.
They made hell look not that bad.
They could have gone with this concept and used any other character name set, and it would have been just as fine, though. You know.
I mean, yeah, possibly.
What do you mean? What do you mean? I mean, you have a princess, you have a major domo who's her main assistant. You have other people running around the castle that also have to do jobs.
Sure,
like
but
lords.
I think using this names and this premise allowed them to explain less because people already know who these characters are.
Yeah,
you know?
And it wasn't so much about what they were doing; it was how they went about it and in the interaction of the characters with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, there was some plot. There was a very minor bit of character development, though. But they, as we were discussing earlier, so there is some romance to it, right, between the Beelzebub and her assistant.
Yeah. It is very. It's middle school romance. It's basically like they've never ever experienced something like this in their life, and both of the main characters are just sort of oblivious to it. Like, well, the main male character is oblivious to her feelings, and then the female character, Miss Beelzebub, she's actually oblivious to her own feelings as well.
Yeah, she doesn't even know how to label them.
Yeah, and it sort of goes on like that, and then it also introduces the other characters who also realize what's going on,
and who are very
call
cute.
it middle school.
Yeah.
Love, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's the way they did it was pretty adorable. The way that these characters grew
was wholesome.
Was very wholesome.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just I enjoyed this a lot. I enjoyed this quite a lot. and I gave it a pretty solid 4.5. Yeah, I'd say if you're into these type of animes, definitely give it a try.
I'm not into these as much, so I'm just gonna go with a 4.0.
Sure.
I'm just saying, dude. And it's what it is.
You can be wrong. It's fine.
Whoa! All right, so I kind of wanted to hit some of these shows up and talk about their music too, because that's definitely important to an important aspect of the show.
Right.
So Double Decker's music was actually halfway decent.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was very jazzy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very jazzy.
And the music that they played during the show, like the score,
Yeah.
wasn't bad either.
Yeah.
It certainly was jazzy. They had a lot of like different drum beats where they would move from one segment to the other.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, well done. Not quite, Yoko Kanno tier jazz music.
I mean,
but I mean,
close, but
and then it's kind of world's best, right?
dare you even compare it?
It was good though.
Okay.
It was good.
Yeah.
So, Girl in Twilight. Honestly, this music I don't think stood out to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Slime, also kind of generic
Yeah,
music.
whatever. Bunny Girl Senpai, the opening, I enjoyed the opening. A
Yeah,
lot.
the opening was good.
Mm-hmm.
And the closing credits actually, I think the closing credits, did they change on this one?
I honestly don't remember, so.
I think they fit though.
Mm.
I didn't watch Vampire.
Mm-hmm.
How was the music?
I don't think Boarding School Juliet was really memorable.
Nope.
But the scores inside the show were actually really good.
Yeah, they were fitting.
They were very, very well done.
Yeah.
So Many Colors, I don't really remember anything.
The music, the opening and closing credits music wasn't bad. There are a couple of occasions during the show, like in the episodes, where they go with what they're doing, the dialogue stops and actual other musical pieces start.
Right.
And I think that fits really well.
Yeah.
So, opening, closing, not bad by any stretch of the imagination,
Mm-hmm.
just nothing that was memorable.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Goblin Slayer opening, very, very good.
God tier.
Very good.
God tier.
It's basically like Attack on Titan for season opening, is what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
Very good.
Well, not quite that good, but it's still God tier. Conception, again, why even bother?
Mm-hmm. Beelzebub. It was
Beelzebub.
just adorable.
Very kawaii.
It was adorable.
Kawaii.
So let's see. What is your top three?
My top
for the
three?
season?
Well, I guess moving from reverse order, like 3, 2, 1.
Reverse order, is that like inverse order?
Oh. No, from, I'd say, Boarding School Juliet, number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, Goblin Slayer. Number 1 show this season for me, Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai.
Okay, so 1 and 2 I agree with. I think Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl was the psychological aspect of it was what pushed it over ahead Goblin Slayer.
Yeah?
Are you sure you're not thinking of So Many Colors as number 3 instead of Boarding School Juliet?
We talked about this earlier, and I wound up changing my mind.
Boarding School Juliet and So Many Colors, I would say they're
close.
They're very close. For me, I think So Many Colors edges over Boarding School Juliet.
But hey,
mainly because there was more content between the parts that I really liked. Like with Boarding School Juliet, honestly, the main things I really liked about it was the beginning episode and that fight scene, and then the final episode and that fight scene.
Uh-huh.
Like those were very memorable for me. They stuck out the most throughout the entire series. I think everything in between was kind of like it felt very generic filler to me, kind of, for that type of series, but the end and the beginning was very well done. Whereas in So Many Colors, I was completely enthralled the entire time.
Right. No. So I get it with what you're saying with how I think that the character development and as well as the deepness and aesthetic of the entire show for So Many Colors was overall better.
Oh yeah.
But as far as like my enjoyment, when we were going over the shows, I just remembered how funny Boarding School Juliet was, and how much I enjoyed watching it, not just for the romance aspect or the battle aspect, but for the jokes and for the situations that they were put in, and the reactions to it. So when we talked earlier, we were like in agreement for the top 3, but just remembering how funny Boarding School Juliet was, you know, put up a couple points in my book, and I honestly gotta go with it over So Many Colors. And I don't want to say anything bad about So Many Colors, because it's a really good show.
It is.
I just happen to enjoy the comedy aspect a little bit more.
All right, well, I guess I enjoy story. I think story is more important.
Wow.
Than you do. So.
Wow. Way to like polarize
it's
things.
It's fine. I mean, you can be wrong.
I was wrong one time. I was wrong one time. I remember it like it was yesterday. So anyway, thanks for joining us again for the fall anime for 2018 recap / breakdown
/ review.
And, you know, just for kicks and giggles, another slash in there. Hope you join us again for when we do some updates throughout the middle of the season, as well as if we've got a good backlog of anime that we have watched. We're going to wind up going over with more spoilers some other anime that we enjoyed, and hopefully we can have a good discussion about that.
That is correct.
Thanks for joining us, and have a great evening.